Hej, jag heter Navid Modiri och det här är Äkta Media, Sveriges första medienätverk som står för ärlighet, konstruktivitet, transparens och aktivitet. Nu är det så här att det har gått ett tag sedan vi gjorde podden Hur kan vi? Och alla de samtalen, både podd-samtalen, live-samtalen, bakom-kulisserna, allt ligger ute gratis där poddar finns och på vår YouTube-kanal Hur kan vi? Tack vare er, våra fantastiska lyssnare och stöttare. Och efter Hur kan vi så har vi fortsatt utforska hur vi kan göra media på ett annat sätt. Vi har provat folkets berättelser, ett sommar i P1 för vanliga människor, Institutet för nyfikna idioter, en skola i ljudformat och senast Antagonia med råa, raka och riktiga samtal utan att klippa, utan att manipulera, utan att redigera eller styra utifrån ideologi, pengar eller vinstintresse. Och nu är det dags. Nu växlar vi upp. Nu gör vi inte en podd till, ett event till, ett projekt till. Nu bygger vi ett medienätverk tillsammans med dig. Så det här är Äkta Medias poddkanal och du kan vara med och skapa den. Vi söker investerare, programledare, poddare, föreläsare, tänkare, författare, debattörer. Människor som vill vara äkta, konstruktiva, transparenta och aktiva med oss. Hör av dig på navid@modiri.se. I den här kanalen så kommer du kunna lyssna på gamla klassiska Hur kan vi-avsnitt som vi har valt ut, våra favoriter, klassiska avsnitt. Vi kommer kunna spela upp några gamla folkets berättelser, lektioner från Institutet för nyfikna idioter och gamla Antagonia-avsnitt och en massa nya avsnitt, live-samtal och program som vi har skapat tillsammans med dig. Sitt inte där själv och offra dig och tyck synd om dig och tycker att det är jobbigt och skrikigt. Gör någonting åt det tillsammans med oss så det blir äkta, konstruktivt, transparens och aktivt. Hör av dig på navid@modiri.se om du vill bygga Sveriges första äkta medienätverk tillsammans med oss. Nu lyssnar vi. Samtalen fortsätter.
I think actually Sting made a song about you.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I think it goes something like, oh, I'm an alien. I'm a legal alien. I'm an Irishman in Alingsås. I just had to do that.
That was the B-side.
Might have been the G side or the H side of that track, but we'd known each other for a few years, right?
Yeah, I think two and a half years maybe.
2.5 years seems like more. And I don't remember did you email me and I didn't answer? What was the deal?
Yeah, so I spammed you on Instagram, spammed you on emails as well.
Yeah.
Because a girl I knew was working for me, she had, I'd came across your name, a good friend of mine, Joel, had said about the podcast. And then a girl working for me was like, you gotta connect with this person. Because at the time I was writing for a newspaper and a super left-wing paper. And Maria, she was like, my page was my page. So it didn't really fit in with maybe the narrative. And she's like, you got to check out this Navid guy. And then she sent me your TEDx talk.
Oh,
and
right.
playing golf with Jimmy.
Yeah.
Then I was like, oh, that's...
The English one or the Swedish one?
English one.
English one.
Yeah. So, because obviously my Swedish is still terrible, but it was...
Yeah, we know.
So,
we're going to fix that.
Yeah. So when I got a picture of who you were, I'm like, okay, fuck yeah, I like this. This is exactly what it is because, it's... I don't know, the weird polarization that's here... I don't know. It's like downwind of America, and the magazine I was writing for at the time, they didn't like that I started to talk to what I thought were super interesting people, Henrik Jönsson and Aaron Flam and Jan Emanuel. They were like, let's not talk to those guys.
What? Just let me just digest that slowly. So they didn't want you to talk to certain people about certain things. How does that feel?
Yeah.
I think it would be good to just set the premise, or I mean, I know who you are, and I know what your passion is, and why they connected you to what I do or what we did with Hur kan vi? But let's just start out by telling the story about how Kevin Maher ended up in Alingsås, or actually splitting your time between Gran Canaria and Alingsås, where the vision and the idea of Tidningen Framåts came from, and what you guys are doing right now, and where you're headed. So just let's start from the beginning.
Yeah, so, beginning, I was born in a manger in Bethlehem. And no, so I'm from Dublin, Ireland. I'm from a suburb of Dublin called Tallaght. For anyone who knows what Tallaght is like, it's where your stolen cars end up in Dublin.
People are riding horses on the street, right?
Yeah.
Or they did, at least.
They did. Now, Tallaht's a great place, wonderful place, hard-working people. I grew up in typical Irish Catholic working class family. Very strong values. 15
siblings.
Yeah, exactly.
But at least 7, right? No, 6.
5 kids. Yeah, so 7 in the family. It's very obvious when people eat with me for the first time, just how I navigate food on the table, because you had to eat pretty quickly.
Right. Oh, shit. Yeah, that explains a lot. You're always done when I'm starting on my first course.
Yeah. Second youngest of 5 as well. So, if you didn't eat quick, you didn't eat. It's like first up, best dressed.
Right.
So yeah, like obviously growing up in Ireland, you don't really encounter, you grow up from the neighborhood you're from. It's a working class neighborhood, but in Ireland you do have some of those kind of class differences, but it's haves and have-nots, but it's not really, we don't have that kind of typical struggle or like division that you typically see. Everyone was fucking poor in the 80s. Like, nobody, a lot of families didn't even have a car. And then in the space of 15 years, we went from people not having jobs to people having 2 cars and 5 vacations, and the whole country exploded like throughout the 90s. So, as I say, like my dad, he's 73 this year, still working, drives a cement truck. So grew up in a very hard working family. You obviously told you can do whatever, you can do anything, but you can't do fucking nothing. So it was always instilled in me, that kind of like drive. But
what does that mean exactly? You could do everything, but you can't do nothing.
Well, there was no limits placed, and you could do anything that you set your mind to. So it was a very positive environment. Like when I compare with a lot of Irish people have this kind of repressed, like stuck in a box feeling. I was lucky enough that my dad worked for himself. He was working since the age of 12. For him it was, if you work hard at anything, you can get it. But he wouldn't tolerate you sitting around doing nothing. On the flip side, I have the best mother who told me I'm perfect and beautiful and brilliant at everything every day. So I had a very good contrast. One or the other would have been maybe not the best.
Right.
But yeah, so, blessed with the family I grew up in, but I always kind of wanted to get out. I kind of felt like where I am in Dublin, I wanted to get out and explore the world. And I try and explain to my kids today, they view everything through the lens of TikTok. I grew up, like Hollywood raised me, like TV shows raised me. I wanted to get to America. I wanted to, I watched Wall Street. I wanted to go and, take on the world. And America was that, like, you can follow your dreams. You can fucking do anything you want. So when I was 19, I went to live in New York. And that was a huge fucking adjustment. It was just totally, went to work at a country club with one non-Jewish member. So that in itself was just an adjustment. And what I think I learned the most was, like, you're speaking to people who are on boards of basketball teams and they own private jet companies, and they're all just fucking normal people that were the same as the drunks that I spoke to at the bar I worked in Ireland before I left. People are just people. If you can hold a conversation, you can get along. You can get ahead. So it's one thing I always give my dad credit to. He always instilled in us: you don't talk up or down to anybody. You're at everyone's level if you carry yourself well. And so it just really, I suppose in some ways, it showed me that the world is easy to navigate, no matter where you're from. And then when I went back to Ireland, it was just a bit like, okay, how do I get started? How do I make something of myself here? And it spurred probably 11 years of wandering, really. Ended up in Gran Canaria on and off, back in America, lived in America multiple times. Was employed for a total of 3 months between the age of 23 and when I started my business at 30. So I was very much a nomad. I would work on projects, very good at sales and very good at marketing. And, give me something to sell, I'll sell it. Give me a project to work on, I'll achieve results. I'll make a lot of money and then I'll spend 6 months enjoying myself,
right,
traveling. So very kind of unstable years brought me to Gran Canaria.
And just if we just go back to your upbringing, did you guys discuss and talk a lot of politics around the dinner table?
Not so much. I wouldn't say politics. Like in Ireland has a unique political system. We have two parties that have shared power for about 100 years. We got rid of the Brits, 800 years of fighting. We finally get our independence. And then, of course, what do? We then decide to have a civil war and kill each other. So those parties split and, depending on who your family kind of aligned with, that's where your voting allegiance was. So those two parties have shared power for about 100 years. We never had right and left. We have both. You
had right and wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Or wrong and wrong.
Yeah.
But I would say they're both kind of center right. One party served the city folk, one served the country folk more so. Church heavily involved in the country. Funny example, the school I went to growing up, there was one family whose parents were divorced. It was so weird.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck did they do so wrong?
Because Irish culture is very family oriented, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. And it was 2002 before you could even get divorced legally.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Really?
So yeah. So
is that Catholic?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah. And look, obviously, you need to progress, but there are some people who would argue, has the country gotten better now that everyone splits up?
Is it still legal to fuck animals?
In certain counties, yeah.
That Swedes prohibited that in it wasn't maybe 10 years ago?
No, well, the thing is now there's a big kind of goat loving culture because we've imported a lot of people.
Loving or fucking?
Fucking.
Okay.
Because we've now enriched our culture with people from the Middle East.
Careful now. Go on.
But I'm sure there was parts of the west of Ireland where sheep's, what would they say, where men are men and sheep are nervous.
It's not fleshlights, it's fluff lights. Oh yeah, that's disgusting. But I mean, I was interested and I was curious about where this curiosity came from and the drive to explore the world, because I don't think you've mentioned any other siblings that did the same kind of hero's journey or traveled as much as you did.
So I have a brother. He's down in Australia. I haven't seen him since he left about 15 years ago, but he was, there's the old archetype of the Irish convict that goes to Australia.
Wonder why.
That's Johnny pretty much.
Yeah.
When he made the move, it was a good move to get out of Dodge. But he's made a life for himself down there. But yeah.
Is it true that Australian is basically drunken English? That's why they sound like they do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a pun. I mean that for real.
That's where they sent all the convicts from Ireland and Britain.
Yeah.
And then at some point they decided that they need to organize society. So it's
and they kinda did.
Kind of.
Kind of. All right. So when did you first set foot on Gran Canaria and why?
So first time I went to Gran Canaria would have been 2002, and that would have been your typical finished high school, go on a drunken vacation, like, Swedes go to Magaluf or whatever it might be. I hated the place. I thought it was the biggest dump ever. It was just filled with, like students who had just graduated. It was, as I would describe it, would be like kids in football shirts covered in blood.
Spring break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't really my cup of tea. It's very dated. Like Playa del Ingles, Gran Canaria. It's, it kind of has that old trashy vibe. So I was like, no, this isn't for me. And then I went back in 2005. I'd met a guy who was working down there, working with events. And he's like, oh, come down. It's good. You can make a lot of money. And I'd done that for the summer. And subsequently, that funded then travel into the US. At the time, I was working with universities in Ireland, running events. So my calendar was work with the universities during the year, go to Gran Canaria, fill up the bank account, then go traveling and have lots of fucking fun. Coast to coast across America a couple of times. Pretty much kind of settled in Colorado. Have a big network of friends and people who I met along the way there. And so I kind of kept on this little track of rebound, and that took me through a couple of years. And then 2010, I thought, okay, I'm going to go out to the States and I'm going to see if I can stay. I'll figure something out. Work illegally or do something. And it just felt like, maybe I could marry someone. Maybe I could do something to kind of stay. But as I got closer, I just thought like, okay, well, there's pitfalls there and you can screw up. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to Europe, back to Ireland and try and make a go of it. But again, you're in the recession. This is 2011 now in Ireland. The recession hit us really, really hard. Like 2008-9 financial crisis, the economy just fell out in Ireland. It was all built on construction and buildings. And there was a huge banking crisis. So, as I said, like my family, we don't have a pot to piss in. So it wasn't like access to money or investors was ever there. So I thought, okay, well, this isn't happening. I wanted to start a marketing business, wanted to do something of my own. And I thought, okay, well, Gran Canaria, I know how it works. It's super low cost. If you want to start a business, there's great tax incentives. I also know I can survive and fail forward and fail. And I did for like a year, 2 years until we actually got an office together. And then, 2014, then I started what happened along the way, let's say I met my wife's sister, Carolyn, who was working down there, and her man, Craig, from London, one of my best friends. So I'd gotten to know those guys throughout the years being down there. And then as I was starting my business, Carolyn was our first sales manager on our Swedish sales team. Started the business with two friends of mine, Joel and Issa, two Swedish guys I knew from the island. So when we started the business, it also came at the same time that I rented an apartment for the first time, as in signed my name, and got together with my wife. So 2014 went like this full, absolute 180 from no commitment, just living like fly by night. The bag is always packed. If things go wrong, I'll just get the fuck out. And just done a total switch.
And I just met Joel today for the first time. He's actually, right now, he's building the Antagonia website. Yeah. Yeah. Really nice guy. So that was your first business partner?
Yeah, exactly.
And wife we're talking about?
Mm-hmm. My wife's my first girlfriend.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, she's your wife and your first actual relationship?
Yeah. I was 30. So up until 30, I didn't do much. Like as I said, the guy from Bethlehem, he was the same. Same archetype I'm going for. Hanging around with friends and whores for a couple of years. Traveling around.
Where's your frankincense and myrrh then? What the fuck?
So it was, as my dad said to me, he said, look, all the energy you were spending fucking around, now that you have a good woman, you're putting that into your business.
Yeah.
So everything just kind of clicked and changed.
So you got your direction, and also like you focused your tribe to put your effort there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was when you were 30. How old are you now?
40.
40, yeah. So 10 years. And you started your sales business in Gran Canaria, and your girlfriend and now wife was living in...
No, so she was in Alingsås. Her sister was living full-time in Gran Canaria at the time. And funny story, I was visiting Sweden about 7 years before, 6-7 years before, visiting Carolyn and Craig, actually at Pernilla's house, her parents' house. So I met her on the back porch of her parents' place. And yeah, she blew me away. Obviously, she was beautiful. Carolyn is beautiful. And then she has a hot younger sister I was really excited to meet. But, Pernilla was in a relationship at the time. But I never forget when I met her at first, because we're having a chat outside and the guys are having a cigarette. And, you're trying to, see if there's any sort of vibe going on. And then she just turns around and goes... and spits on the ground. And I was just so disarmed by this. I was like, this beautiful little Swedish angel is now just spitting on the floor.
Disarmed or disgusted?
Yeah. Yeah. So it was just like, it was so weird to me. But yeah. And obviously it was pretty innocent. I had a huge crush on her. Her sister was tired of me over the years. I kept asking about her and, kept asking. And And then when she became single, I was straight in probably 2 hours later asking her out on a date. Because, it sounds, cheesy or whatever, but every girl I'd met in the meantime, over that 6 years, it was just, there was a bar they got measured against. So it was probably my way of protecting myself and, keep myself on track.
So when you met her on the porch in Alingsås, was that your first visit to Sweden?
Yeah, very first visit.
And that was what year?
2008, January 2008.
Right. So like seven years ago. No, 2008, sorry.
2008, yeah.
17 years ago.
17 years ago.
And what was your first impression of Swedes and Swedish culture?
I think it's similar to most people who come here expecting just tall blondes.
and they meet me. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly. and Alingsås is a small town, but like, of course, you go into little cafes and restaurants and, because, I don't know, I think typically Swedes like being employees rather than entrepreneurs. So all the business owners are Persians and Turks and yeah. So it's, but yeah, it was nice. I came here, it was winter, obviously it was January. But Alingsås has a very special charm. It's like this fairy tale town, the old buildings, and it's a very safe and nice place. It was very different to where I grew up. Where I grew up was lovely, but it was, there's definitely more of an aggressive kind of tension to the place, whereas this felt like it's some, movie, easy, passive kind of fairy tale town.
Yeah. So that was the first impression. And how did that grow on you? Is it still cute, harmless, and innocent?
I would say Alingsås still has that charm. Yeah. And having, I have, 14-year-old girl and 18-year-old boy, my bonus kids, Kevin and Ronja. The boy's Kevin, obviously, so.
That's funny. Still funny.
Pernilla's crush was Kevin Costner, so yeah. And I'm pushing for, hopefully, please God, we'll have a child this year, and that's going to be Kevin as well. So.
Kevin the second. The third. Sorry, Kevin the third.
No. But yeah, I think it's, Alingsås is still one of those pretty untouched little small towns that, and I don't mean untouched as in there hasn't been mass immigration, but I mean, it just still has retained this kind of like nice folksy kind of like tradition in the town, the way the buildings are, everything. And it's a nice place to raise kids, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I was raised in Gothenburg, and I mean, it's pretty close. What is it? Maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes by train?
Yeah, 30
Something
minutes.
like that, yeah. And Alingsås, as you portray it, is very, yeah, it's cute. And we went there like to play handball or do like, I think they had some kind of mall or something when I grew up close to Alingsås, or maybe in Alingsås. So you went there for certain reasons, and it was like cute and nice. Every like Alingsås, or if you went to Partille or Stenungsund, it's basically the same kind of atmosphere, right? And then if you wanted, the big city, you went into Gothenburg. That was a deal. And so how did you go from, commuting between Gran Canaria and Alingsås, cultivating this relationship with Pernilla and growing your business to start Framåts, to start a magazine?
Yeah, so that was like most things by accident. Joel, a couple of years ago, he reached out, he called me up and said, we have a new project. So and again, we're a sales and marketing business, old school, cold call telemarketing primarily. We do a lot of digital marketing stuff, but that's our bread and butter, And he said, there's a newspaper, they want us to work with them. I was like, okay, cool. He's like, the woman who works there, she's just demanding we need to deliver a certain amount of clients, quick, fast. They're paying this. I'm like, okay, I'm interested. So yeah, we took on that project. It was for a newspaper called Tidningen Framåts. And Framåts was, if you were to design a newspaper that's just all about identity politics, it would be Framåts. It's the tagline was nya svenskar, kvinnor, funkis, hbtq, äldre. Is there anything that I missed out?
Nyanlända, invandrare, maybe you said that.
Nya svenskar.
Nya svenskar,
yeah. So everyone who wasn't a white Christian man, basically. But really, really good paper. It was all about positive news. And, we were able to deliver huge volumes of readers to them. And then working with them and helping them on the marketing side and getting to know Anna, who's a brilliant, courageous, wild woman with so much fun ideas, but really just so driven. I then learned a little bit more about presstöd and how that system works. And what had unfortunately happened for those guys was they used a selection of writers and journalists who were, I think, copy-pasting English stories and translating them, or press releases, and they fell short of their original content for the magazine. So they were in a bit of a panic. I've always written kind of myself personally, and then they needed extra content. So Anna had said, jump in and see if you can write something. And I started to write and really enjoyed it. It was a good outlet, and continued doing a page every week. And not so long before COVID, the magazine had they were denied their presstöd because it was just a mountain to climb. No matter how much original content, they were way far behind. So they put the project on hold, and then during COVID, they relaunched as Tidningen Maja. And Maja was again pretty left-wing magazine, mångfalden, miljö, människan. But me with a marketing background and like interested in what do people want to buy,
right? We
had developed our way of selling both Gränslöst and Maja as, don't tell people that this is just one thing, because you need to have an open conversation. You don't want to just be one, so looking at it, I just always felt as a product, they were selling something to half the country instead of selling it to everyone and inviting everyone in. So we kind of went back and forward on that, but it is what it was. I had my own page in Maja where I just, wrote what the fuck I wanted. I covered a lot of the US politics, a lot of international stuff.
Was there an editorial pressure on you to lean left at all?
No, in fairness, they pretty much gave me like free range. We'd have a laugh about, what I wrote about maybe, but most of it was not focused on Sweden in any way. It was mostly US politics, so whatever. But then obviously I interviewed Jan Emanuel, who was visiting Gran Canaria, and it was actually a colleague of mine, Jonas, booked the meeting. He's like, you got to check out this guy. I had no idea who he was. And this is 4 years ago maybe. So at this point, I've been spending a lot of time in Sweden. I've been visiting Sweden a lot. I should have had a bit of a clue maybe of who this guy is. No idea. So I go to interview him, and I'm like looking at fucking Wikipedia to figure out something about him. And I sit down, and Jan, he's can be a bit standoffish and short in his communication and just like tough to get into. And I think after a couple of minutes, he just realized this fucking retard has no idea who I am. Because the basic questions I was asking him were just... So, and then we had a great conversation, really got into it. Had a ton of fun. He obviously, he liked the interview, he shared it a lot as well. It got us like a lot of attention. And this is going from this small magazine. So I'm thinking, oh, what a win. This is a home run. We can capitalize on this level of interest. And they were like, oof, I don't know. Should we be interviewing him? And I'm like, oh, well, he seems to be he's a lefty like you guys. He might just one of the old school versions. But yeah, I was like, okay, well, maybe he's just a controversial guy. I don't know what the full... And then there was a super interesting story that happened at the time where a Jewish comedian was having his book censored and stopped by the state. And I'm like, okay, right. If you go and interview this guy, like this has got to be a home run, right? The Jews, come on. Who's going to stop that? So I went to meet Aaron Flam, had a great chat with him. He's fucking brilliant, such a fun guy and a guy I've gotten to know really well. And then
It's not like I'm sitting here like, oh, Jewish comedian, who is he talking about? There's not a lot of them to choose from here. Yeah. If you say Jewish comedian in New York, you don't know who the fuck you're talking about. But here it's Aaron.
And I was just fascinated by the whole thing of like, okay, the state were viciously trying to stop the release of his book, which, I read. It's a dense book. It really goes into detail on, whether you agree or not, it's a good read. But
they confiscated the book. I mean, that's unprecedented.
Yeah, it was, and it's such a big story, regardless of like, even if you don't like what he's saying. Yeah. Sweden has always been held up as this bastion of free speech, and obviously, the fact that I'd been working then with these newspapers and, everything was celebrated as like, okay, everyone has their rights and the rights we protected. And then I was like, okay, well, this is interesting. Yeah. But when on the train back from Stockholm to Alingsås, I sent into the magazine, like, I've just met this guy. It's going to be really good. I'll have an interview with him. And I thought, yeah, okay, great, nothing of it. And then one of the other writers in the magazine decided to write 2 articles in the space of a week attacking Aaron and his positions on things, which I just thought was, and again, look, this is not some like, oh God, such a terrible thing, but I just think for a small newspaper to also be going after Aaron, when I'm just trying to, from my marketing point of view, this guy's got a lot of fucking followers. Like we can have a good interview with him. It can, our magazine might be able to reach people on his side, because we also have some great stories in there. It was like the whole theme of the magazine was like positive news. Yeah.
But I think the difference is that you're actually thinking. And I don't think that person, I may be wrong, but I don't think that person is actually thinking, but acting on a more of almost like a tribal reflex. And the reflex is not about Aaron. It's about positioning yourself within your in-group to show it's like a dog whistle, It's for certain people to understand that, this Irish drunk may be doing this interview, but I'm taking a stand. So it's not about the newspaper, it's not about you, it's not about Aaron, but it's about them like almost branding themselves within their own community. And I don't say that to be like putting that person down. It's from a very it's from an understanding and empathetic point of view, because that in-group is so expensive on a social and existential level.
Yeah.
You have to pay to...
Gotta pay the toll.
Yeah, you have to pay the toll to even be in the group, not even to climb in any hierarchy, but just to not be excluded and put in the wild. And you know...
And the sad thing about it is the woman who was like, you know, the founder of the magazine, wonderful woman, Anna, like all she wanted was this paper to live and breathe. And it was, you know, some people within the writing group and junior editor was a couple that were really pushing back against it. And I thought, okay, well, anyway, the articles will stand on their own merit, and people will read about Aaron from my perspective and from this guy's, which is fine. But then I subsequently, after meeting Aaron, you know, I found out he was on the Dave Rubin show, which I'm a fan of Dave Rubin, and he was on there with Henrik Jensen. And I'm like, okay, great. This is Swedes talking about Sweden in English. Fantastic. So I really enjoyed the episode. And then obviously I reached out to Henrik then. And I'm like, okay, well, I want to fucking talk to this guy too, because he seems a little bit interesting. And went to visit him at his house, not too far from here. I think we booked in to be there for like 30 minutes. Actually, Joel, who was here today, Joel came along as my photographer because Joel was a fan of Henrik. And I think Henrik figured out this guy doesn't know how to use a fucking camera.
Classic hack.
Yeah. And then we spent the afternoon, we had a bottle of wine. We sat in the sun, and such a brilliant, funny fucking conversation about everything. And I challenge anyone who has an issue with Henrik, his profile, or as a person, to listen to that conversation, not think, oh, this is a good dude who wants the best for everyone. Yeah. But then they said, okay, well, look, you have to stop talking to these people because this is not the direction we want to go.
Det här är gränslöst.
So, yeah, exactly. So I was like, okay. And look, at that point, you know, and I will say all respect to Anna. But when we done the rebrand from Gränslöst to Maya, me and a colleague, Elise, who you know, when we were trying to kind of mold the idea, the concept for Maya, we did push for this kind of balanced, like let's bring everyone in, and obviously it didn't make it. So after this, when you know we could see, okay, well, I'm not going to keep, you know, writing, but I want to keep pursuing this. I want to keep talking to these interesting people. Like, you know, I live in this country now. Maybe wasn't the first plan, but I am here. My wife, my kids are growing up here. There is some clear, wonderful things about living here, but there's also some very uncomfortable conversations about crime, about the state, about structure, about things that people are maybe not having. And I'm like, I'm fascinated by it. I want to know, like, how does all this work? Yeah. Because, you know, my beautiful, wonderful, sweet wife is not as maybe interested in all these things. She's grown up in Alingsås. A lot of people are just like, oh, you go to work, you send your kids to school, it should all work out. Yeah. And there doesn't seem to be that same level of like interest. So I'm like, okay, well, I want to figure all this stuff out. And I could see, like, by talking to these people, this is the way. So I just said, okay, well, this is time where we can make our own thing. Like, why am I complaining that this isn't the right place? You know, like, let's just do our own thing. We know how to fucking reach people. We know how to sell the product. We know how to get people hooked in. And now we get to sell something to everyone. Yeah. So that was kind of the genesis of, like, how do we create something that, I suppose it's not for everyone, because you have to kind of want to listen to the other side. So, and then, you know, the name for Framåt came about, you know, and look, I'm definitely a big Donald Trump fan. I read his books as a kid. But there was a candidate in the 2020 election. He was a Democrat candidate. He got knocked out of the primary early enough. His name was Andrew Yang, Asian guy. Yeah. He was the most solution-based candidate.
Yeah, he was cool.
loved him. And his tagline for his campaign was "Not left, not right, forward."
Yeah.
So copy with pride. So that's what became Intervenster.
But I always thought he was an independent, but he was a Democrat.
He was a Democrat. I think he probably would have been an independent, but he ran as a Democrat.
Yeah, strategically, because there's no sensible person who runs for independent in the States.
Yeah.
Because it's useless.
Yeah.
Right. Whatever happened to him?
He ran for, I think it was mayor of New York a year or two ago. But yeah, he just kind of fell off. But I think what he done was, people talk a lot about Trump's win this year and being on the podcast. If you look at like Yang, like his run, that kind of, they call it the Yang Gang. It was like all those podcast guys, he got huge traction there. And I think that was the first wave where it showed like, okay, look how this can penetrate. Yeah, they can get the message across.
But I know I have a theory about why he didn't make it, and I think the same might apply to Bernie as well. I mean, except for the whole sabotage within the Democrats, because they actually fucked him over. But I mean, it's America. They want a cowboy.
Yeah,
and Andrew Yang has a lot. He doesn't have charisma.
No.
He's very smart, he's very empathetic, he's very nuanced, and to Americans, it's like eating fruit instead of candy. It's good for you, but it's fucking boring.
Yeah.
At least there was something to the Obama story. At least there's something about Trump that you can hate. People don't know what to do with Andrew Yang. They don't even know where to put him.
I think he could have been a great number 2 to someone.
Yeah.
But his policies, you know what I mean? And he's the only one talking about, what people are now starting to talk about, like this next industrial revolution where, we're moving into tech, and what are we going to do with people who, are left behind? So it's, but also the message of his campaign was like, he was the only one who was going out there to talk to Trump voters and try and pitch them. And that's so I've always been interested in that, why in there are you going to just why are you going to just speak to one side? And we all have our echo chambers and our thought bubbles, and I've always tried to watch Russia Today and CNN and Fox. Fox is definitely more entertaining. But also go to Al Jazeera. And, I think that started because when I went to the US 2003, Iraq war was in full swing. And I was just really shocked because obviously I went there. I worked. You
mean the invasion?
The invasion,
yeah,
exactly.
It wasn't a war.
Yeah.
Because in a war you have two sides.
Yeah.
It was just an invasion.
And I remember working at the bar I worked at. There was a lot of Middle Eastern guys working there, and we'd be watching the news together, and they were kind of giving me their version of things, and we were very like, to us in Ireland, it felt like, oh, this stinks. Like we know what it looks like when, an oppressive force like
how bullies operate. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
And it didn't pass the smell test. Saddam, and look, I think it's obvious at this point, Saddam was not a great person, but if you look at what happened to the country after they got rid of him, it's, sometimes the lesser of many evils. So
for sure.
But then I went to the US, and of course this is, by the way, America post 9/11, what an amazing place. Everyone was so close together, so united. Like that's what fucking war does to people. Yeah. Like in my first experience there, the idea that racism was a problem I'd never even encountered a discussion about racism. It was like, what are you doing for the country? What are you doing to get ahead? Who are you? Because it's a melting pot, so, but then I went there, and then everyone was, of course, to an extent probably brainwashed or amped up, but nobody had the same picture of this being like an illegitimate war at all. Yeah. And these were all great, wonderful people with big hearts. And it really showed me like, oh, wow. Like just the fact that I was able to look at slightly different media I at least had the question, where they didn't even have the question. This was 100%. So,
and now George W. Bush is this cute old man they're booking for public speaking, and he's like inspirational and is writing books, and people just forgot that he actually lied to the whole country and to the whole world and still haven't apologized for that. Yeah. That's a fucking trauma. And I mean, his whole cabinet, you know, these liars like Colin Powell and all these really, really manipulative, like psychopaths, they're still wandering around just, you know, getting paid and doing stuff.
It's bizarre. As well as that, like, you know, obviously being as old as we are, we've lived through the reality of the left being anti-war previously.
Yeah.
And also being funny and cool and rebellious.
Yeah,
and
I remember
all
that.
of those
vaguely.
Things. And so the idea that, like, Dick Cheney, who was the most corrupt and, you know, untold evil that has come from that man and his plans for Iraq, because that's what it was. He had a clear plan for what he wanted to do. The idea that any member of his family could be held up by the Democrats as some sort of a saint and person of good nature just because they were against Trump.
Yeah.
In the last, it's just bizarre to me. But like this flip that happened, it's just, I never could have imagined the left like becoming pro-war, pro-establishment, pro-corporation, pro-bank. It's just fucking weird.
There's no left.
No.
Right? Sorry, you can't take the Persian out of Gothenburg, but you can't take the Gothenburg out of the Persian. So you started Framåt because you weren't able to actually express those views or channel that curiosity through your column in Maya.
Yeah, pretty much. But as well as that, I think...
And that was 3 years ago.
That would have been 3 years ago, yeah. I think I was also a little bit naive. As I said, in Ireland, you know, we pretty much had two parties. We never had a right-left divide. And so I was a little bit, you know, obviously the US has always had that split. But I think, you know, I was just very naive in terms of not realizing what is at stake when you talk to people who are from the other side. And in Sweden, there's a lot at stake.
I know. I can recognize that. Being naive and just curious is dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think like one kind of interesting thing was when we done our like pre-launch of Framåt was at Bokmässan in 2022. And it was the week after the election.
Yeah.
And obviously the biggest culture event, I guess, in the country. And
Kulturtant, that's a word you need to learn.
Kulturtant.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know tant?
Tant, my daughter told me this the other day because there was a woman driving slow in front of us.
Jävla tant.
Jävla tant, yeah.
I knew it.
But I thought she said jävla tunt, which is nerd, because I'm trying to pick the words up as I go along.
Tunt is nerd, tant is old lady.
Sharing.
Yeah, it's the step before sharing.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
but tant is kind of cute.
Okay.
So you say kulturtant.
Kulturtant.
Yeah. That's the you know, an old cute lady who loves poetry and goes to Bokmässan and drinks wine once a year and fucks around.
Yeah.
Kulturtant.
Also what I've realized is
the kulturtants didn't like kulturministerns speech on the Gothenburg Film Festival. They don't like Parisa at all.
That was phenomenal.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, that's the first politician with balls in quite a while. And of course, she's a woman and she's Persian.
Of course, she's Persian.
You need a Persian woman to show you where the ball's at. Oh, they're so oppressed. Nope. They'll eat you up for breakfast. Yeah. Yeah, so 3 years ago you started Framåt, more like a side hustle, passion project.
Yeah, like we got the pilot together. We had our like launch at Bokmässan, which was more of a kind of investigation to see, okay, what's the appetite like? And well, what I did learn, these Kulturtant and friends, a lot of really racist people that are packaged in a very, you know, nice, empathetic package, but
I love Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sex tourism. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they also like their view of immigrants are these useless, brown, nice, happy-go-lucky people that we must help.
Yeah.
And it's just that go into any community, that doesn't fucking serve people. And it's just
it's the racism of low expectations. We call it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's even worse. I'd rather have a skinhead kick me in the head than one of those tunts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was pretty, like, you know, the conversation that we had that week was pretty telling. But I think, thankfully, or not thankfully, although I can only vote in the local elections, and I did vote for the guys who won. But I think if
the blue Social Democrats, because there's only Social Democrats in Sweden. That's the two camps actually: the Social Democrats and the people who are not Social Democrats. Yeah. And then you have different colors of social democracy.
And but I do think if the election had went the other way, Framåt as a concept or whatever, it would have been a little bit easier for people to just be like if you're not left, that means you're definitely right. But I think there was just a little bit of an air of like, fuck, what has just happened?
Yeah.
And maybe telling everyone that they're racist and, you know, telling everyone not to listen to anyone, maybe now that they fucked up. And that was kind of the feeling where they were like, okay, well, you know, because it's clear if you tell people, you can only push people so far away. Yeah. So yeah, it was also interesting to meet a lot of interesting people that weekend. So Jan Guillou, we had a chat with, and Tilda, who was our junior editor. Tilda, by the way, was a huge part of us launching Framåt. I met Tilda. She worked at my company in Spain, and I found this crazy dreadlocked.
I love Tilda.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
Crazy dreadlocked girl who was kind of like that last piece of like what I needed to get that like spark to say, okay, let's really go. Because she is a real dyed-in-the-wool Vänster. You know, our family are all Vänsterpartiet. But common sense, you know, you can have deep conversations. She loves to argue. So me and her would like discuss, like, and again, I'm trying to figure all this shit out. So I'd be fascinated. How does Duke's school work? How does insurance work? Health insurance? How does healthcare work? And she had
It doesn't.
Yeah. But at least she had her version of like why it doesn't work and what we need to do to fix it. And I would be like, I think we could fix it a different way. But we had these really passionate discussions about everything. And that was a big driving force of it. And yeah, like so much of, you know, what we're doing today is like, has come from that, Jen's that back and forth. And I think it also gave me the confidence to say, okay, well, let's get out. You know, the appetite is really there for it. And yeah, from there, 2 years ago, we launched then as a weekly magazine. And you were a huge part of helping us get out there and whipping us into shape.
I mean, I love the vision. I love you. I mean, it's weird that we only known each other for not even 3 years, because it feels like we've been on the same path together for more than that. And I still really believe in you and in Framåt. And I really want to see Framåt take off. And especially, I mean, it's a year left to the next election. And I'm certain, I'm really, really sure that next election in Sweden in 2026, the narrative and how do I put it, the dynamic between old media and new media and the conversation climate is one of the main factors. And I don't have any solutions. I don't have any answers. But Framåt, to me, is one of the solutions, one of the, you know, pillars of hope, because there's something to it with you not being a Swede, and in your immigrantness not looking like me. And I think there's a potential to that because you know, no other comparison, but when when Borat. Hear me out. It's not the goat fucking, I promise. I mean, what Sacha Baron Cohen does brilliantly is that he disarms people, and he's this curious, funny character, and that. I think one of the effects is that people lower their guard and actually tell it like it is. And for the viewer or the listener, it's obvious that the head of CIA is a fucking retard. Because through the curiosity and through the, just being weird and nice.
Well, I think as well, like I get to ask the stupid questions. And by stupid questions, I mean, these are questions that a lot of Swedes don't have the answers to, but are scared to ask.
Yeah.
Like, why do we do this thing? That's how it's always done.
Yeah.
But why?
Yeah.
And then there's not much beyond it. So it's, I think maybe there's definitely an advantage to that. But it's, I don't know, like as I said, like I love Sweden. There's so many great benefits to it, but there's so many things that are just very curious. Like, on the one hand, it's like there's this great system, and Swedes are very proud of this wonderful system that you guys have. It's great. I think you told me it's the humble brag of like how great it is here. But when things aren't working, they don't go like to their local politician. They don't go and make demands from the authorities. They just kind of complain about it.
Yeah.
But if your neighbor steps out of line, people are quick to put their neighbor back in line. But you don't go and, like a good example, a couple of years ago during the election, I was in Alingsås at the Torget and all the parties are there. And I was having a chat with one of the guys from Moderaterna. And I went around to everyone. SD, I think, they were not allowed in the Torget. They were down by the back of the church somewhere. But I was trying to talk to everyone about, and because at the time, me and my wife, we wanted to build a house, and we were trying to, and everyone says, the planning permission, the process in Alingsås is going to be 2 years.
Yeah.
In Borås, it's better, but here I'm like, that doesn't make sense. So I start talking to this local politician from Moderaterna, and thankfully I forget his name. But he was like, yeah, it's ridiculous. My brother had a problem as well. And the two of us are really connecting about this like core issue. Like everyone accepts in the commune that this is a problem. It needs to change. So I'm like, okay, super. So like who's in power at the moment? And he's like, oh, well, we are. I was like...
So what the fuck is he doing about it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's just this kind of slowness of, I don't know, it's bureaucracy on... I don't know. It's just, it just seems like people are quite accepting when the system lets you down. And I know, like, obviously, Ireland maybe... we have a little bit more of that rebel, like, okay, we're going to go in and demand change, or, I suppose in some parts of the UK as well, or in France, obviously, they just put their tools down and quit work every time. You don't want that in your society, but the idea
Why not? Of course you want that.
Maybe, yeah.
Of course you want that, because when the people are frustrated, they need to act. I think we would benefit from having more of that energy in Sweden in certain times, of course. But I'm also thinking there's so much like playful potential in using you as a vehicle. I told you before that it would be awesome to just, the concept of a mystery shopper?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for the listeners and for you who don't know, it's basically like H&M could hire a mystery shopper that just goes around to the different stores, shops, and then it evaluates the process and the service. And they can fix stuff, and they could create an even better service. It would be so awesome to do that with you, but within the Swedish systems. Right. Just give like reviews of Arbetsförmedlingen, Försäkringskassan, the healthcare system, just like a mystery immigrant. That would be really fun. Or maybe do like an SFI-kurs with Kevin. Learn Swedish culture with Kevin, and I could be your teacher. That would be fun.
I think there's a couple of places opened up in Örebro at the moment, that class.
Yeah, we need to register that as a studiecirkel with ABF, maybe.
Yeah, so just regarding Swedish system, there was one day I went into Systembolaget, and this is why I can't, like, the weird things about this country, it's so free and open, but then the government has the monopoly on selling alcohol on this chain stores. And I went in, and you had set up a meeting for me to go and spend the day with Juan Frick.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, okay, as I do normally, I'll bring a bottle of whiskey with me as a gift. And I went in, I was in Stockholm, went into the store to buy a bottle of whiskey, and they only had the 750 milliliter bottle. I'm like, that it looks cheap. Like, I'm not going to go with the small bottle. It's going to look like I just went for the cheap option. And they didn't have the liter bottle. And I asked the guy, I'm like, what's happening here? And he's like, don't you know what this is? Like, I'm like, well, yeah, it's a liquor store. Like, he's like, no, this is Systembolaget. I said, okay, yeah, but
I'm Irish.
Yeah, like I don't.
Do you know who I am?
What's happening? And look, I respect the fuck out of anyone who goes 110% into their job, like the passion that this man had, because he was sat there and he was like polishing bottles to put back on the shelf, polishing the dust off. He's like, no, this we don't just sell alcohol. We work for the government. Mm. This store is here to stop people from hurting themselves. Yeah. Like, and he went into this tirade about like why it was created and all this, and again, like, he's really drinking the Kool-Aid. Like, he really believes in the cause. But it's
he's actually drinking the 10-liter bottle of that Kool-Aid, so he should shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
I mean that. Yeah.
So that it was just it was bizarre. It was a bizarre experience. And again, look, Ireland, we pushed back against, obviously, governments. You have a bit of that rebel spirit, but to be honest, that's economic success has beaten that out of the Irish a little bit. But in America, where I've spent a lot of time, that, their liberty needs to be protected at all costs. So it's interesting for me to look at all these different systems, and it's like here in Sweden there is so much good, and there's so much promised good for when you're older, that you just kind of seem to accept this mediocrity of, it's come back, go home and see how you are in a couple of days. And if anything serious happens, the ambulance will pick you up.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you pay fucking crazy amounts in taxes.
Yeah.
The care you get should be immediate. It shouldn't be only emergency. So, yeah, but...
Yeah, so, I mean, we're going to wrap this conversation up. But I think this could be a fun way to present you to the Swedes, because there's so much to you and to Framåt that is not being, shared. It's not being distributed through the network. And I really believe, as I said before, in you and the vision in Framåt. And let's
Thank you.
Do some stuff with Antagonia. I could just set up, like, in our agency, I could set up a page with, Kevin Maher, and people can come in contact with you, and we could have a link to Framåt. They could book you as a, public speaker. We could do some stuff just to get you out there, because I think your perspective could be really valuable for the Swedes as a mirror.
Amazing. Thanks. And what I will say as well is, if I can plug something.
Do it.
One of the biggest successes that we've had was we had a national skrivtävling, if I'm saying that properly.
Yeah.
And we had over
Good enough.
We had over 3,000 students competing in our first competition. From that, Hannah and Ossian are riders with us today. They came first and third. Amazing talent. There's so much fucking talent out there.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I ended up riding by accident. I would have just been ranting on social media like anyone else, but somehow I got an opportunity to write. So that's why I really want to push the writing competition, and it's going to be, again, 2025 is not an opportunity for everyone to enter it. But as I said, like, Ossian and Hannah are still writing with us today, and Ossian is this great young guy from Stockholm. He is, one of the funniest things towards the end of last year was we had a meetup dinner, and Ossian's family are Persian. I think there's some Palestinian in there as well. And so obviously Aaron, Flam and him were sharing breaking bread together. Ossian shows up with his Iran football shirt, and it was really fun because Ossian, you know, when I told him who's going to be there and who writes the magazine, he's like, "Fuck that guy, no way, fucking Zionist, this, that, everything else."
Yeah.
And we had a really good night, really good conversation.
Yeah.
After it, he posted all the pictures and he said, "Great team, Aaron Flam can draw helvet." but you know, it's like that's the thing. Like people from different backgrounds, perspectives should be able to just sit down and shoot the shit.
I mean, if you're a young writer, Swedish young writer out there, who is, you know, deep in politics and opinionated, could they just write an email and start writing for Framåt?
100%.
Oh, wow.
Send it in if you're good enough, you're old enough.
Yeah. So how does one do that? Do you have like an email or just?
I'd say best would be hit us up on Instagram. So at Tidningen Framåt on Instagram, or just send an email to info@tidningenframåt.se.
Amazing. So let's keep this conversation going, and we'll talk more about what we could do next time. I have some ideas, but I would love to just put you in the agency and start spreading the gospel of Kevin Maher and see what happens.
Awesome. Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much. Let's go eat.
Yes.